I got to the station, got the ticket, called the funeral home to say where I was and that I was on this train and would be down in Galesburg about noontime or so, and then sat in Chicago for over an hour before the train got ready to leave. It was an hour late in leaving. Then it took them over an hour to get out of the yards in Chicago. Finally got on the road. I knew I was late getting into Galesburg. It was nearing 2 o'clock. What in the world am I going to do? There was the funeral director there, or somebody from the funeral home waiting for me. We got in the car. He said, we called the railroad station. We knew you were going to be late. We got a hold of the Methodist minister in Alpha. He was upstairs in the parsonage painting a room, but he agreed to come and do the funeral. Thank heavens for Methodists. So we drove up Highway 150, getting near Ryle. We met the funeral procession coming from Alpha, pulled in behind the hearse, or no, in front of the hearse. Moved to the cemetery. I did the committal service. I marvel at that kind of thing even yet. Then we went up to, from there we went to Hamlet and Perryton. I was doing the Doctor of Ministry program there, got started in it. A number of things happened, but one of the things I remember, I had to go out to San Francisco for 6 weeks one of the summers. We made our arrangements to fly out of Moline. Somebody had to take us to the airport, so a friend took us there, and we drove on what I would call the preemption blacktop. Over here you might call it the Reynolds blacktop. That was the day after a tornado had come through the area. There was wreckage all along the road. The DeMarley farm had been hit a second time. Didn't know this at the time. My son was going to marry the DeMarley girl. And I didn't find out about this until years later. We got out to San Francisco. Ken married Irene DeMarley. We came back by train. That's all beside the point. We married, you had a Korean pastor here at the time, and Claudia DeMarley had decided she was going to go to church here. And somebody mentioned her name to me, and when I mentioned DeMarley, and said, I believe I remember Claudia. I don't know if anybody else who's here knows her, but we did the wedding over at Hamlet. We had the reception here in the basement of the Preemption Church. For first and only time I've been in the basement here. My own wedding took place at Hamlet a couple years later to Naomi back there. And it was kind of an eventful thing in a way. I had made arrangements with a fellow pastor who was a friend of mine up in the Quad Cities, Bob Williams, to do the wedding. I don't know what happened, but he was late that day. And we had scheduled the wedding. We had a reception going to take place at Naomi's church, which is Memorial Christian Church up in Rock Island, at 7 o'clock. At 5 o'clock, he was not there. At 5:15, he wasn't there. I was getting worried. Naomi was thinking to herself something like that, we're going to have a reception for our wedding, and we aren't even married. Well, you can do things when you're under pressure. And I knew the Baptist pastor at the Antioch Baptist Church west of Hamlet, about 3 miles or so I called him. Yes, he could come over and do the wedding. You know, in Illinois, you have to have the wedding. You got a license from Mercer County. It has to be done in Mercer County. Can't be done across the county line. So I look out the window. Here's a car coming in the church. I said, hold it a minute. I think he's arrived. And he had. Following it, we went to a meal up in Rock Island and then to the wedding reception. And while there, we met square dancing. And Naomi's square dance group had decided they were going to put on a mock square dance wedding, where somebody came to me with a shotgun and brought me up the aisle, and Naomi had been dressed like she was 10 months pregnant. And the guy with the shotgun, who I knew, said, "You're going to marry my little daughter." We got up there, and the person who was officiating was another person by the name of Bob Williams, a friend. Oh, well, things happen all the time. Following that wedding within a couple of months, we went out to Malcolm, Iowa, near Grinnell, serving a three-church parish that had 2 Methodist churches, 1 Presbyterian, because it was the Presbyterians' turn to furnish the minister. The 2 churches in town, the Methodists and Presbyterians, worshiped together. 4 months in one church, 4 months in the other. That way the holidays always came in a different church each year. And then we went out in the country to the Sheridan Church, which was 12 miles out, and had a service there. Got into all kinds of difficulty with the Lord's Prayer, you know. Presbyterians are debtors and debtors. Methodists are trespasses. In town, they had agreed to cooperate to the extent where they said sins instead of that. So one time we were at the Presbyterian church for a women's meeting, and the lady in charge who was doing it said, "Let us say the Lord's Prayer using the words that Jesus said." In other words, debts. King James debts. Well, you get all those. We had we had a wedding down at there and out in the country west of Montezuma. They'd asked me to do the wedding. I did it Western style. Everybody was dressed in Western wear, and I had just had picked up a Western style suit that we got at a rummage sale up in Rock Island. From a man who wore that, and it's about the only time I've worn that particular suit. Immediately following the wedding, when I pronounced the man and wife, fireworks went off down by the lake. Interesting enough, the fellow pastor down there at Montezuma retired and moved out to that little community, and he said he was moving out to live between the bishops and the lords, because the people who had bought the property on the left side and on the right side, one was named Bishop, the other was named Lord. After that, we came back to Illinois, and I was ended up at Oquawka. Story behind that was that it was a Methodist turned to furnish a minister at Hamlin and Perryton after 6 years, so I really needed to move so they'd have room for the Methodist. And I started looking for a Presbyterian church, couldn't find one at the moment, and so I inquired of the Methodist. And the Methodist district superintendent said, "We're always happy to see a Presbyterian come to us. We'll consider your request come September, but this is late May. I have to move in the middle of June." 3 or 4 days later, I get a call back from the Methodist district superintendent saying, "We have a church in a small county seat town along the Mississippi. Would you be willing to consider it?" I knew where the church was right then and there. He didn't know that I knew. I said yes. So we went to Oquawka. I got there in time to fill sandbags for the 1993 flood. And I've always told people that's why I went to Oquawka, to fill sandbags, because we kept the river out of Oquawka, whereas Pittsburgh and down toward Galesburg, Burlington, south of Burlington, it flooded over.